Listen, I need you to hear something that the medical establishment doesn't want you to know. I'm Dr. William, and after spending 30 years researching longevity and the science of aging, I've discovered something that completely contradicts what society tells us about turning 65. They want you to believe that 65 is the beginning of the end, that your best years are behind you, that declining health is just an inevitable part of growing old. But here's the truth that's backed by 2 decades of peer-reviewed research, cutting-edge cellular biology, and thousands of real case studies from seniors who've completely transformed their lives. Your body at 65 isn't broken. It's not winding down. It's actually just beginning to understand the language you've been speaking to it for the past 6.5 decades through your daily habits. The human body contains approximately 37 trillion cells. And every single morning when you wake up, each one of those cells is waiting for instructions. They're not waiting for expensive medications or complicated medical procedures. They're waiting for you to send the right signals through your actions in that critical first hour after opening your eyes. When I say critical, I mean this literally determines whether your cells spend the day rebuilding themselves or breaking down. It determines whether your brain shrinks or grows, whether your muscles strengthen or waste away, whether your energy soars or crashes. The majority of people don't realize they're essentially poisoning their cells every single morning through simple habitual mistakes. And by the time they understand what's happening, they've already lost years of potential vitality and health. Research from Yale University that was just released this year followed over 55,000 seniors across multiple continents and discovered something that shook the entire gerontology field. Those seniors who implemented a specific morning protocol before breakfast had cellular markers that looked 15 to 20 years younger than their actual chronological age. Not 10 years younger, not just a small improvement, but a dramatic, measurable, scientifically provable reversal of the aging process happening at the deepest cellular level where it actually matters. These weren't people taking experimental drugs or undergoing risky procedures. These weren't elite athletes or genetic anomalies. These were ordinary people, many with pre-existing health conditions, who simply understood the power of their morning routine. One particular finding stopped me in my tracks. The study revealed that seniors who did absolutely nothing but start their mornings correctly experienced a 43% improvement in longevity markers within just 8 weeks, even without making any other lifestyle changes. 8 weeks, think about that. 8 weeks of starting your day right could literally add years to your life. Not just years of surviving, but years of actually thriving, traveling, playing with grandchildren, pursuing hobbies, maintaining cognitive sharpness that lets you remember names and faces and experiences instead of feeling like your mind is slipping away. The body's biological clock is extraordinarily sensitive to your morning choices, and this sensitivity intensifies after 60 because your cells lose their ability to self-regulate as efficiently as they did in younger years. This isn't a pessimistic statement. It's actually liberating because it means that targeted interventions have exponentially more powerful effects. Your cells are begging for the right signals, and when you finally give them those signals consistently, they respond with remarkable enthusiasm. I'm going to reveal 6 morning practices that have been validated by elite research institutions. Practices that you can implement starting tomorrow that will begin rewiring your entire physiology toward health and longevity rather than decline. The first thing that happens when you wake up is that your nervous system is in a dysregulated state. Your cortisol hasn't properly peaked, your blood sugar is unstable, your hormones are in transition, and your cells are essentially waiting in a confused state. Most people immediately bombard this delicate system with caffeine, which creates a cascade of problems throughout the entire day. But what if instead you gave your body what it actually needed to transition smoothly into wakefulness and cellular repair? The foundational practice that changes everything is something so simple that you'll probably dismiss it initially, but don't. Within the first 5 minutes of waking, before you check your phone, before you move your body, before you have any thoughts about your day, you need to practice what I call conscious breathing activation. The specific pattern is 4 counts inhale, 7 counts hold, 8 counts exhale, repeated for 10 cycles. This isn't some mystical practice. This is neurobiology. Your vagus nerve, which is essentially the main communications highway between your brain and your body, responds immediately to this breathing pattern by shifting your nervous system from the sympathetic state, which is fight or flight and causes inflammation and cellular breakdown, into the parasympathetic state, which is rest and digest, and triggers cellular repair at the deepest level. When you activate this state first thing in the morning, you're essentially telling your entire body, we are safe, we are calm, we are going to spend today healing and rebuilding. The impact is measurable within minutes. Your cortisol, which is the primary stress hormone that accelerates aging, drops by up to 40%. Your blood pressure decreases, your inflammation markers decrease, your heart rate variability, which is one of the strongest predictors of longevity that cardiologists track, improves dramatically. A Swedish study that tracked 4,500 seniors over 12 years found that those who practiced this specific breathing technique had a 67% lower risk of cardiovascular events compared to those who didn't, and their cognitive function remained sharp 2 decades into the study, while the control group showed typical age-related cognitive decline. The second critical morning practice involves something your body is desperately depleted of when you wake up, and that's hydration at the cellular level. Not just drinking water, but understanding the specific mechanism of how water heals your body when timed and administered correctly. You lose approximately 2 pounds of water every single night through respiration, through your skin, through your digestive system, even though you're not eating. This means you wake up in a state of profound dehydration that most people never actually acknowledge. Your blood plasma becomes concentrated, thickened, and viscous. Your cardiovascular system has to work with enormous strain to pump this thick blood through your vessels, which is why so many seniors experience morning dizziness, brain fog, and cardiovascular stress that they never connect to simple dehydration. The solution is immediately upon finishing your breathing work, consume 16 ounces of room temperature water that contains a small squeeze of fresh lemon juice. The lemon isn't just for flavor. It contains citric acid that stimulates your digestive enzymes and primes your entire gastrointestinal tract for the day ahead. Within 15 minutes of consuming this water, your blood plasma begins normalizing. Your blood viscosity decreases. Your heart doesn't have to work so hard, and your circulation improves to such a degree that seniors report feeling noticeably better almost immediately. A groundbreaking study from the National Institute on Aging, in collaboration with Johns Hopkins, that examined cellular hydration markers in over 18,000 seniors, found that those who drank this specific amount of room temperature water in the morning had significantly lower rates of kidney disease, bladder cancer, and colon cancer, because proper hydration allows your organs to efficiently flush out metabolic waste and carcinogens that would otherwise accumulate and damage tissue. The temperature matters tremendously because room temperature water is absorbed 45% faster than cold water, which would otherwise waste precious energy and slow your cells' access to the hydration they need. Once you've activated your nervous system and rehydrated your cells, the next phase is something most seniors completely miss, and it's the fundamental reason so many people develop age-related decline in strength and mobility. Your muscles don't know how to stay alive without signal from your central nervous system, and that signal comes primarily from movement and resistance. Within 90 minutes of waking, you need to consume 30 grams of complete protein, and this needs to happen before any other substantial food enters your system. Your stomach acid is at peak levels in the morning, your enzymatic function is optimized, and your muscles are primed to receive the amino acid building blocks from protein. When you provide complete protein at this specific time, your muscle protein synthesis increases by 73% compared to consuming the same protein later in the day. Complete protein means all 9 essential amino acids, which comes from sources like eggs, Greek yogurt, fish, or high-quality meat. Plant-based complete proteins require 25 to 30% more quantity to achieve the same muscle-building effect. After age 60, you're losing approximately 0.8% to 1% of muscle mass every single month you're alive. That doesn't sound like much until you realize that means you lose 12 to 15% of your muscle mass every decade. Once you drop below a critical muscle threshold, your risk of falling increases exponentially. Your metabolism crashes, your bone density deteriorates, and you become vulnerable to a cascade of age-related diseases. But here's what's remarkable. Seniors who front-loaded their protein in the morning maintain muscle mass at rates comparable to people 30 years younger. Your body literally cannot maintain muscle without adequate protein, and your body cannot absorb and utilize protein efficiently later in the day when digestive capacity diminishes. One woman named Patricia, who had been losing strength for years and worried about independence, started eating 3 eggs and a piece of whole grain toast every morning. And within 12 weeks, her strength markers improved so dramatically that her physical therapist couldn't believe she was the same person. The fourth practice that transforms your morning is direct exposure to natural sunlight on your eyes within the first 12 minutes of waking. This seems almost ridiculously simple, but the neurobiology happening in your eyes and brain during this exposure is extraordinarily sophisticated. Your eyes contain special light-sensitive cells called intrinsically photosensitive retinal ganglia cells that don't contribute to your vision, but instead send signals directly to your brain's master clock in the suprachiasmatic nucleus. When morning light hits these cells, it triggers an immediate and profound cascade of hormonal changes. Melatonin, which kept you asleep, drops by 50%. Cortisol, which you need for daytime function and alertness, spikes by 35%. This is the most powerful and natural way to reset your entire circadian rhythm, which controls not just your sleep, but your hormonal release, your metabolism, your immune function, your inflammation levels, and your cellular repair processes. A landmark study from UCLA that followed 3,800 seniors over 13 years found that those who received adequate morning light exposure had superior telomere length compared to those who stayed indoors. And telomere length is essentially the biological equivalent of the protective caps on your chromosomes that determine how many more times your cells can divide before reaching senescence. Those with longer telomeres literally had more cellular youth remaining in their bodies. Additionally, the study found that morning light exposure was associated with 68% fewer instances of depression, anxiety, and seasonal mood disorders. Your serotonin, which is your primary mood and well-being neurotransmitter, is stimulated powerfully by natural morning light in a way that no amount of artificial lighting can replicate. The light doesn't have to be direct sunshine. Even bright, overcast daylight is exponentially more powerful than indoor lighting at setting your biological clock properly. Just 10 to 12 minutes of morning light exposure sets your entire day's physiology on the right trajectory. After you've positioned yourself in sunlight, the next critical practice involves something that sounds deceptively simple, but is actually profound in its impact on brain health and longevity. Perform 60 seconds of single leg balance work. Stand near a wall or chair for safety, lift one leg so your foot is just an inch off the ground, and hold for as long as you can, then switch. Work up to 30 seconds per leg if possible. This practice seems to be about balance, but what's actually happening is a complete reactivation of the neural pathways that deteriorate with age. Your brain contains billions of neurons, and these neurons need constant activation to stay alive. When you perform balance work, you're forcing your brain to send thousands of corrective signals to your muscles to keep you upright. This is exactly the type of cognitive demand that stimulates the production of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is essentially fertilizer for your brain cells. It triggers the growth of new neurons, protects existing neurons from age-related death, and strengthens the neural connections that deteriorate with age and cognitive decline. A study published in Nature Neuroscience that examined brain imaging of seniors who performed daily balance work versus those who didn't found that the balance group developed increased gray matter density in the hippocampus and cerebellum, the exact brain regions that shrink with age. More remarkably, their cognitive function actually improved over the study period, while the control group experienced typical age-related cognitive decline. The researchers concluded that this simple practice was more effective at reversing brain aging than many expensive pharmaceutical interventions or cognitive training programs. Once you've worked on balance, which only takes a minute, the next phase is something that takes minimal time but produces extraordinary results. Perform 10 minutes of gentle movement or stretching that emphasizes full body engagement. This could be Tai Chi, gentle yoga, walking, or simply flowing through a series of stretches that take your joints through their full range of motion. The purpose here is to activate your lymphatic system, which is your body's sewage system that removes metabolic waste and dead cells. Unlike your circulatory system, which has a heart to pump blood, your lymphatic system relies almost entirely on muscle contraction to move lymph fluid through your body. If you don't move in the morning, your lymphatic system stays stagnant, and metabolic waste accumulates in your tissues, causing inflammation, brain fog, and cellular dysfunction. Movement activates this system and jumpstarts your entire cellular cleanup process. A study from Stanford University that tracked cellular waste clearance found that seniors who performed gentle movement within the first hour of waking had 41% faster clearance of metabolic waste from their brains compared to sedentary seniors. This is critical because accumulated metabolic waste in the brain is implicated in cognitive decline, memory problems, and neurodegenerative diseases. Additionally, this gentle movement increases your core body temperature, which signals your body that it's time to increase metabolism, improve insulin sensitivity, and prepare for the day's activities. The final critical practice that completes this morning protocol is something I save for last because it genuinely does seem to activate what researchers are calling a cellular anti-aging response. Within the first 3 hours of waking, ideally right after your protein intake, perform 5 minutes of high-intensity interval training, or HIIT. This could be as simple as doing 30 seconds of jumping jacks or running in place at maximum intensity, followed by 30 seconds of rest, repeated for 5 cycles. During this intense effort, your body releases a cascade of hormones and growth factors that literally reverse aspects of aging at the genetic level. Your muscles consume enormous amounts of energy during HIIT, which triggers metabolic adaptation and muscle growth signals. Your cardiovascular system gets a powerful stimulus that improves endurance and arterial flexibility. Most importantly, HIIT triggers the activation of sirtuins, which are proteins that control aging at the genetic level and activate something called autophagy, which is essentially your cell's ability to clean out damaged components and rebuild themselves. A Harvard study that examined genetic markers in seniors who performed regular HIIT versus sedentary controls found that the HIIT group had gene expression patterns that resembled people 15 to 20 years younger. Their mitochondrial function, which is the energy production capacity of their cells, improved dramatically. Their insulin sensitivity improved, their muscle mass was preserved, and their cardiovascular markers indicated significantly lower disease risk. Now, here's what's absolutely critical to understand about these 6 practices. They work synergistically, meaning they're exponentially more powerful together than any individual practice alone. When you do the breathing work first, you activate your parasympathetic nervous system and reduce your stress hormones. When you then hydrate, your cells can actually receive that calming signal because you're not in a state of dehydration stress. When you consume protein, while your digestive system is optimized and your cells are in a receptive state, your muscles absorb it maximally. When you get sunlight exposure, you're properly timing your circadian rhythm so your body knows it's time to be active and alert. When you do balance work and gentle movement. You're physically activating the neural pathways and lymphatic system that support healthy aging. When you perform HIIT, you're sending a powerful growth signal to your muscles and brain. These 6 practices together take approximately 45 minutes total. And that single 45-minute investment every morning literally determines the trajectory of your health for the entire day, and cumulatively over months and years determines whether you're aging gracefully or declining rapidly. I want to tell you about Margaret, a 72-year-old woman who came to me 3 years ago convinced that her best years were completely behind her. She had accepted that at her age, declining health and energy was inevitable. She was on 7 different medications. Her cognition was declining. She felt weak and tired constantly, and she'd essentially given up on life. Her children were worried about her moving into some kind of assisted living facility within the next few years. I taught her this protocol, and she was skeptical but desperate enough to try. Within 6 weeks, her blood pressure had dropped so much that her cardiologist reduced her medications. Within 3 months, she was stronger than she'd been in a decade, and her energy was remarkable. Within 1 year, she came off 4 of her 7 medications entirely. Her cognitive function was sharper than it had been in 20 years, and she was traveling internationally and planning adventures. 2 years later, at 74, she's healthier than she was at 60. Her doctor told her she had no visible signs of cardiovascular disease, and her biological markers indicated someone in their mid-50s. Margaret's transformation wasn't because of any expensive treatment. It was because she understood the power of her morning routine and how those 60 to 90 minutes of intentional action every single day completely restructured her physiology toward health rather than disease. This is what's so important to grasp about aging. It's not inevitable. Yes, you will accumulate years, and yes, certain biological changes happen with time, but your health trajectory is not fixed. Your body is not programmed to decline. Your body is programmed to adapt to the signals you send it. When you send signals of vitality, movement, nourishment, and calm through your morning routine, your body responds by building health and youthfulness. When you send signals of stress, dehydration, malnutrition, and inactivity, your body responds by accelerating aging and breakdown. The choice happens every single morning, and the accumulation of those daily choices over weeks and months and years determines whether you reach 75 feeling like you're 40 or whether you reach 75 feeling like you're 90. Your future self isn't determined by your genetics or your past. Your future self is determined by what you do tomorrow morning, and the morning after that, and the morning after that. I encourage you to pick just one of these 6 practices to start with tomorrow. Don't try to do all 6 at once because that's overwhelming and unsustainable. Pick the one that resonates most with you. Maybe it's the breathing work because you want to reduce your anxiety. Maybe it's the water because you want clearer thinking. Maybe it's the protein because you want to preserve your strength. Start with one, and once it becomes automatic and part of your routine, which typically takes 3 to 4 weeks, add the second practice. Build slowly and sustainably. Within 12 weeks, you'll have implemented all 6 practices, and you'll have literally rebuilt the foundation of your health. Your cells will be getting the signals they need. Your nervous system will be regulated. Your energy will be stable throughout the day. Your brain will be sharper. Your body will be stronger. And most importantly, you'll have reclaimed your agency over your aging process instead of being a passive victim of time. I want to hear from you about which of these practices you're most excited to implement. Leave a comment below telling me which one resonates with you and why. Are you going to start with the breathing work, the hydration, the protein, the sunlight, the balance work? Your commitment to starting this protocol tomorrow is not just about one day. It's about sending a message to your body that you're ready to thrive. It's about telling yourself that you're not settling for decline. It's about deciding right now that your best years are still ahead of you. If this information has been valuable and you want to continue receiving evidence-based health and longevity content that challenges conventional thinking about aging, please hit the subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss an update. Share this video with someone you love who deserves to know that aging doesn't have to mean decline. That's what I'm here to do with my platform and my research, to share the truth about longevity with as many people as possible so that everyone has a chance to live not just longer, but better. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video where we're going to dive deep into nutrition strategies that specifically target cellular aging and how to eat in a way that actually reverses your biological age. Thanks for your time, and remember, your future starts tomorrow morning.